The time is at hand.
From the land of crackheads and honey in Williamson, West Virginia, you're in Dark Places. Dogman stories. Not entirely sure, but I think I encountered a dogman. I honestly have no explanation. It wasn't until someone else on another YouTube channel commented to me and said that they think I saw a dogman, but it all made sense with what I saw. It was late at night. We were driving out, middle of nowhere, to go camping. I saw something very tall with blackish/gray legs run fast up a steep hill. It had the backwards knees thing too, hocks and stifles, typical to a canine. For the life of me, I had no idea for 18 years what I saw. It's not anything like a typical animal that could easily be explained. I was traveling on Highway 10 from the west coast to the south coast of Florida. I was with my 6 kids and pulling a trailer with all my belongings and 3 dogs in it. It was a big SUV, and it was around 2 a.m. The kids were all asleep, and my 13-year-old daughter was in the passenger seat to make sure I stayed awake. So after traveling Highway 10 for 3 days, I had decided, since we reached Florida, we would cut through the state to save some time. So we got off Highway 10 on an off-road in hopes of getting gas and making up some time. It was along Route 27, Apalachicola National Forest. We came to the first little gas station. It was closed. I was nervous because we needed gas. So we continued on. I told my daughter to keep an eye out for deer crossing the 2-lane deserted highway, because hitting a deer would kill us all and turn us over due to the trailer we were pulling. We were traveling around 45 miles an hour. I remember this so clearly, like it was yesterday, but it was years ago. We had our brights on because the road was dark and winding. A few houses were on that highway, but not many. As we came around a corner, in the headlights on the road, there was a lot of blood, fresh blood. And on the side of the road was this 6 to 7 foot tall creature. It was on his hind legs, hunched over a dead deer, eating it. It did not look up, not even when my headlights hit it. It was using its arms like a human, eating the deer. It had a very muscular body, pointed ears, and a long muzzle. If you've ever saw a werewolf, this was it. It had a skinnier lower body, but used its arms and hands just like a human. If it looked up, I would have died. I looked over at my daughter, and we were both seeing the same thing at the same time. Tears came to my eyes instantly, and at the same time we both said, "Werewolf!" I sped up because I was scared it would run and jump up on the trailer and kill my dogs. As we got about a mile away, my heart was beating so hard. My daughter and I were so freaked out. It was a werewolf. I've never been a believer in werewolves. I don't watch any werewolf movies or have any reason to make this up. As a matter of fact, until today, I have only told a handful of people about this. There is a werewolf in Florida. Not sure the exact town or road, but I wish I did know so I could find out if we were the only ones that have seen this thing. I would live my life wondering. It was between Alabama to Florida, along the Panhandle. I will never forget this night ever. It was October 5th, 2017, at 5-something in the morning, and I was driving myself to work. I like to take back roads because they're peaceful in the early morning hours. It was a few years fresh out of high school and never heard of a dogman. I remember it was a full moon, so the semi-harvested cornfields were illuminated, and I could see all around me. Well, the field I was driving next to was a soybean field, already harvested, so I could see the tree line on the other side unhindered. I noticed something moving really fast in the moonlight, but it was far enough away that I thought that maybe it was just a deer running. It kept up with my truck. I must have spooked a deer, I thought. I came to a curve with 2 homesteads on it, where the tree line met the property line of the 2. I noticed out of the corner of my eye something large, so I glanced at what looked like a pointy-eared mass of fur. But by the time I turned my head completely to look through the passenger side door, the giant woolly creature was right beside my window. Like we almost collided. It had reared up. Its chest, which I could barely see a glimpse of, was partially hairy and almost human-like. I sped up and didn't look back until I got further down the road. I wanted to make sure it wasn't following me. The thing was tall and could run on all fours, but it was not shaped like an ape. It was not a bear. I live in northern Illinois, and my work was next to a river and a forest preserve, so I'm sure that it was trying to travel to the river, as rivers have always been an easy means of travel for many species. Part of me still thinks the creature was just as surprised as I was. Maybe it thought it could beat me and cross the road before I got there. When I got to work, I was in shock still and tried to tell my coworkers what I had seen, and they didn't know what to say, probably thought I was crazy. After that, I began to research to make sure I really wasn't crazy, and sure enough, a ton of people have witnessed a tall, dogman-like creature roaming about North America. The story takes place in 2007 when I was a 9-year-old kid. I live in Michigan, and it was the summer before I started 3rd grade. It was a tradition for my dad and I to go up north and stay a weekend visiting his buddy, who had a cabin on the lake. This year was no different. I was excited as always, but this time I was particularly happy that my dad's wife and her kids weren't going to be with us. The driveway to the cabin was a long dirt road with a smaller cabin and a fireplace near the front. It's also surrounded by thick woods that stretch along both sides of the driveway, which extends about 100 yards up until it opens up into the spot where people park their cars. Just beyond the cars was the bunkhouse. Beyond the bunkhouse was the front yard to the cabin. As we pulled in, my father reminded us that we wouldn't have to camp out in the front yard and sleep in a tent together because the bunkhouse was already being occupied by his friend's kids. I didn't mind at all, as the sounds of nature helped me to fall asleep. The sun was setting as we unloaded the truck, and the leaves swayed in the breeze. The branches danced and cast shadows along the yard that occasionally changed when the sun dipped behind the clouds. The entire property was surrounded by woods and enclosed with a chain-link fence, with the front yard having a gate that opened up into the deck. Once you were on the deck, there was a table and a grill to your left and a doorway to the cabin on your right. If you felt like going, you'd go down 4 steps and come across the hot tub on the left and another doorway on the right, followed by the rickety wooden stairway that led down to the lake. After we said hi to everyone, my dad and I started pitching our tent. I glanced to the right and noticed there was a small clearing about 50 yards out in the woods. I didn't pay much attention to it, and we finished setting up the tent in no time. We then proceeded to join everyone for dinner on the deck, followed by a fire down by the lake. After a few hours of making s'mores, listening to everyone else tell ghost stories, and watching some fireworks that were set off on the dock, I found myself exhausted from the trip and started saying goodnight to everyone. I gave my dad a hug goodnight and started heading up to the deck and out the front yard. I unzipped the tent, crawled into my sleeping bag, and passed out. I don't know what time it was when I woke up, but I could hear my dad snoring lightly next to me, so I assumed it was well into the night. One thing I picked up on right away was that it was dead quiet outside. Instead of hearing the normal summer sounds that I'm used to hearing at night, there was nothing. There were no crickets chirping, no owls hooting, not even the rustling of leaves or twigs rustling as the nocturnal creatures came out for food. It was dead silent. I felt extremely uneasy, but I also realized why I had woken up. I had to pee. I slowly crawled out the front door of the tent and reached for the zipper, hesitating for a moment before unzipping the door. I poked my head out and was met with the eeriest silence I've ever heard. The moon was full and illuminated the trees with their branches as they sat above me silently. The sky was clear and the stars twinkled and they danced in the darkness. I slowly stepped out of the tent and felt the morning dew from the grass hit the bottom of my feet. I glanced up at the sky, just in awe at how clear it was. We never got to see the stars this bright back in the city, and I liked to cherish the moments when I could. I walked over to the big oak tree that was just inside the fence and started doing my business. I lowered my head to the clearing in front of me, and that's when I heard it. Oh. like that. The sound pierced through the silent night. Chills ran down my spine and froze in place as my head darted in the direction of the woods, trying to locate the source of the sound. It happened again. Oh. And this time it was echoed by a few more. What followed were the familiar yips of coyotes, and I was relieved when I saw them emerge from one side of the clearing and exit into the other. I stood there quietly as I observed the canines running and jumping through the clearing. When the last of them had disappeared, I tapped out the last of my business and glanced down to zip my shorts. When I looked back up, I saw something I will never forget. There in the clearing, 50 yards away, was what looked like a coyote mixed with a human, and it was standing on its hind legs, looking right at me. It had pointy ears, thick dark fur, a snout that was snarling and revealing a set of wicked teeth, and his eyes were yellow-orange, staring straight into mine. The thing that terrified me the most about this thing was its size. If I had to guess, it had to have stood around 8 feet tall. I was frozen stiff, but that quickly changed when the thing looked up and let out the most horrific scream I've ever heard. Nothing about it sounded human. I tripped backward over my feet and dashed back into the tent, zipping it shut and diving under my sleeping bag. I then heard the grunt of the large animal, followed by the rattling of the chain-link fence, and then the unmistakable sound of feet hitting the earth. I closed my eyes shut tight and hoped to God this thing would go away. I lay there trembling in my sleeping bag as I heard a set of 2 feet slowly stomp around the tent. After a few minutes, I pulled my sleeping bag tightly down below my eyes. I saw its shadow in front of the tent, its pointy ears tilted back as it let out another scream, before running toward the driveway of the cabin and disappearing into the night. I lay there in my sleeping bag, paralyzed by fear, hoping it wouldn't come back. After what seemed like forever, the sun finally came up. I asked my dad if he heard the screams last night and told him about what I saw, but he assured me it was just a nightmare and that no such thing existed. I dropped it shortly after and kept the story mostly to myself until now. I don't know what it was for sure that I saw that night, but I did see it, and I do know this: I will never set foot near the Michigan woods alone at night ever again. That's all the Dogman stories I got for you right now. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate you. I'll see you next time. God bless.